Now, here's the big idea I want you to go home with today. To greet one another means that we acknowledge one another, we engage one another, and we care for one another. Would you read that with me, please? To greet one another means that we acknowledge one another, we engage one another, and we care for one another. I have three caveats to that statement. First, recognize that not everyone can greet everyone. Okay? Recognize that not everyone can greet everyone. Recognize likewise that no one can greet everyone. After the first hour, someone came up and reminded me of an old movie, Crocodile Dundee, where the Australian who's been living in the outback hardly sees a person a day, and when he sees a person out in the outback, you say hello, you greet him. And he ends up in New York City walking down the street, and he's so used to greeting anybody he sees, he's trying to say hello to every single person on the street. Some of you may remember that, and it's rather comical and it's overwhelming because he's trying to greet everyone, but he can't. And you know what? Neither can we. I can't greet everyone on a Sunday morning. We could try it. I mean, we could all just queue up here, and I could stand out there and just make sure every person is greeted by me. Now, I love to stand back there. I love to greet people. I really do. But I can't greet everyone. Neither can you. This is an important thing to remember. Not everyone can greet everyone. However, everyone can greet someone. Someone is not overwhelming. Each and every one of us have the opportunity to shake a hand, touch a shoulder, embrace someone that we know, and say, good morning. I'm glad you're here today. It's good to see you. How are you? And it goes from there. It's the first caveat. Second caveat, recognize that not every greeting will go to the next level of conversation. Because for some of you right now, you may be feeling overwhelmed, like, oh my, I don't know if I could go to that third care thing. I don't even know what I would say to somebody if they were having a hard time in their marriage. I don't even go there. Recognize that we're all at different places. We all have different personalities. We all have different gifts. Not every conversation you have or every greeting is going to go to, how can I care for you? But unless you're willing to take that first step of, I acknowledge you, you'll never take the next step of, I'm going to engage you and talk a little bit, which means you'll never take the next step of, I care about you. Not every greeting will go to the third step. Some will just stop at the first step, and that's okay, because if it's holy, that means it's set apart by God, and He will use it for His purposes. You don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is obey God. Greet one another with a holy kiss. Third caveat, recognize that if God commands it and we obey, God will give us what we need to fulfill it. We spend a lot of time worrying about the what ifs. If God has given you something to do, and then He gives you an opportunity to do it. And trust Him to help you through the end game of that conversation. Now, as I was preparing this week, I got to this point in my thinking and study, and I said, what should be my mindset? What should be my heart in this? Because it's not just about learning some gimmicks or tricks or sales techniques of how to shake a hand or how to make people feel welcome and at home. I mean, there's something to that. I wouldn't want to do the opposite and make people not feel at home. I'd like to know what I'm doing or what you're doing and how it helps people feel relaxed and welcome. I mean, that's good, but it's got to be more than just some technique. It's got to be more than a gimmick. It needs to be something that's deep in me that I can think about and meditate on that comes from God so that I know it's the right way to approach other people. So I'm thinking, how am I supposed to approach people? What would God have me do in my thinking so that my action follows correctly? And I looked to the beginning of Romans because I thought, you know what? Paul wrote a lot of letters. And in the beginning of his letters, he often is saying, from Paul to so-and-so. And grace and peace to you. That sounds familiar to me. Grace is used in a lot of different ways in our culture. Sometimes we talk about table grace. We thank God for the food. We talk about extending grace, and that's used in a lot of different ways, and I think mostly good. But what does Paul mean when he says grace? Paul is talking about unmerited favor. The blessings of God given to you not because you deserve them, but because he simply wants to pour them out on you. Unmerited favor. It's a Greek word, grace. And it's a word that was used in greeting among the Gentiles. So if you're a Gentile and I'm a Gentile, I say, hey, grace to you. And you say back to me, grace to you. That's how they said hello. And so grace, unmerited favor of God be on you. Hey, unmerited favor of God be on you too. It's a way of thinking that says, I don't deserve grace, and you don't deserve grace, but we get it. Anyway, we get God's goodness in our lives, and as much as I don't deserve it and you don't deserve it, let's desire it for each other. And that grace begins by faith in Jesus Christ, where we come before God and we say, I've sinned, forgive me, and he gives us salvation when we don't deserve it. We don't earn our forgiveness. We don't earn the Holy Spirit's presence in our life. We receive it by faith, but because of God's grace. And then there's the word peace. Peace, that's not a Greek word, it's a Hebrew word. And so Hebrew, it's shalom. So shalom aleichem, aleichem shalom. Peace to you. Oh, to you peace as well. What does peace mean? It's a Hebrew word that means personal wholeness. In our language, we think of peace as the absence of war, the absence of conflict. And in Hebrew, it's not that. In Hebrew, it's personal wholeness, completeness. And by faith in Jesus Christ, we begin a journey by which we are being made whole and complete. It doesn't all happen at once because we're chipped up, broken people, but it's the desire of God that each of us would have deep shalom, deep peace, to be known as people of peace. And so as I looked at Paul's writings, and as I reflected on grace and peace to you, I thought, this is how I need to look at you. And you, and you. This is the mindset I need to have as I say good morning to you, and good afternoon to you, and good evening to you. It needs to be a heart that says, I may know this person very well. I may have just met this person. This person may be a stranger to me. But would it not be right for my heart to desire grace and peace for them? And I think the answer would be yes.